us here today. I'm joined by Superintendent of the New York State Police, Kevin Bruin, and also Rensselaer County District Attorney Mary Pat Donnelly, who last time we were together was to do a packing up of supplies for people going to Ukraine. And so you've been very involved in your community beyond your important work to protect the citizens of your county. I just, sorry for the delay, but I just participated in a meeting that is the results of us bringing together representatives from states such as Maine, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Vermont, New York State, as well as the NYPD and I believe the Boston Police Department. Last January, I said we have to do something about the unwieldiness of the guns coming from other states into our streets and resulting in a lot of gun violence and gun deaths. So we have to figure out a way to start working together. This is, the criminals don't care about geographic boundaries, and therefore I don't either when it comes to stopping crimes. Crime prevention is what we're focused on. So I brought together these other states. I thank the leaders of the states, the governors, for having their leadership in the law enforcement area, as well as ATF and others, who are part of an organic system right here where we get together, we, for the first time ever, share data. And as a result of that, we're making real progress in terms of doing exactly what I want to do. My number one priority as the governor is to keep New Yorkers safe, period, end, full stop. I have to keep New Yorkers safe. So when I launched this task force, I said we have to get together and have collaborations so we can start having gun seizures go up and gun crimes go down. And in that time, 6 months, I asked for a report. We've nearly doubled the number of gun seizures compared to the prior year. Over 662 guns have been seized already, a 98% increase compared to this time last year. Our ghost gun seizures have gone up 1,800% since 2018. That's a 212% increase since 2020. So we are focused on the ghost guns as well as my partner in government, Attorney General Tish James, and Mayor Adams and others across the state. We're working together on these. So last year we seized over 360 ghost guns. State police did 65. And also, what's really important to me, we have made investigative referrals to over 22 states. This level of cooperation never existed before. Before we brought people together, put them in the room together, said we are all on the same team. It's us against them. We have to work tirelessly to find ways to use the data when we find out about traffic in our state, share it to other states and have them share information with us, and that's why we're making a real difference. And the number of shooting incidences are down. For shooters, victims are both down. Shootings are down 12% in New York City, down 7% in the rest of the state. It may not feel like it, but I'm watching the data, and at some point we're going to get back to the pre-pandemic numbers that we're all striving for. So these are the first notable declines we've seen in the spikes of gun violence since May of 2020. So we are turning the corner. We're going full steam ahead to make sure that we continue our efforts to make sure we keep New Yorkers safe. So that's undeniable progress. It's proof that what we're doing here in New York is working. And we know that overall gun reforms, gun safety legislation, it works. New York State deaths due to injury from firearms is about 5 per 100,000. What's the context of that? In other states that have far fewer restrictions with respect to who can carry a gun and who can purchase them and the use of them. In Mississippi, a state with minimal restrictions, they have 28.6 deaths per 100,000. I just wanted you to hear that context. Again, New York State, 5 deaths per 100,000 population versus a place like Mississippi and others. We've now analyzed other states that have far fewer restrictions on guns, and their numbers of deaths per 100,000 are much higher. But it's not enough to have the toughest gun laws in the nation. We're always having to double down and find more solutions to make a difference. And that's why we looked at opportunities for funding. Our budget, just enacted a few months ago, $227 million for gun violence prevention programs, and we have to continue strengthening our laws. I will get back once again and talk about what happened in Buffalo. We'll never forget what happened in Buffalo. That's my hometown. And I immediately called on the legislature after that tragedy struck and got weapons, working hard to get weapons off the streets. We signed a nation-leading comprehensive legislative package. You know the details, we've talked about them. But last week, as we continue to do everything we can here in the state of New York, if I sound a little frustrated, I am, We're doing what we can to get the guns out of the hands of criminals, making sure that you have to be older to buy an AR-15, that you cannot, that we really increase the use of our red flag laws, and I thank the state police for being so aggressive in their approach and making sure that we protect citizens. But then you have the Supreme Court of the United States of America that think that they have more power than a governor does when it comes to protecting the citizens of our state. So they added fuel to the fire. You know, we've had fires raging for a long time in terms of our desire to just tamper things down, get the guns out of the hands of criminals, try to have some gun safety laws that make sense, and all of a sudden we have no longer they removed our limitations on who can carry concealed weapons in our state. So while we're in a time of national reckoning, everybody's focused on this. After Uvalde, after Buffalo, after the day-to-day scourge of gun violence in our streets, we have the Supreme Court of the United States of America tells us that we now have to repealed a law that's been on the books for over 100 years, back when probably Teddy Roosevelt was president of the United States. That's how long the law was there. And now they're totally out of touch with what we want for our state. And we want safer streets, not more guns on our streets. And so what they, in their vision of a New York, would be to allow guns on subways, people carrying them to work, carrying them to schools, carrying them to daycare centers, carry them to crowded venues like Times Square. Bar, imagine someone's, talking to your girlfriend, you're not real happy about it, and you have a gun and you have a temper, and that's what happens. So we are facing a wave of concealed weapons we're going to be facing a wave of concealed weapons in our parks, our subways, gathering places. And so therefore, when this decision came down just 1 week ago, we said we're going to move quickly. Next Thursday, I said we're going to get together. That day has arrived. Tomorrow, the legislature will be acting upon legislation that we're putting forth, and my team is reviewing all of our options. We're going to make sure we have the strongest protections possible, and that's why I appreciate the support of Carl Heastie, our Speaker, Majority Leader Andre Stewart-Cousins, in working with us toward legislation that we believe is going to make sense and continue to protect the citizens. That's why we're having this extraordinary session. That's what it's actually called, an extraordinary session, because we have to make sure that we make these changes, and I want them done now. Let me talk about some of the areas we're going to be expanding restrictions. Sensitive locations. What does that mean? Well, we're going to help everybody know. We're going to help define them. Federal, state, local government buildings, health and medical facilities, places where children gather, daycares, parks, zoos, playgrounds, public transportation, subways, buses, polling places, educational institutions, and making sure that we have no open carry policy as a default position for private businesses. Let me explain what that means. The presumption in the state of New York after we sign this bill into law will be the presumption is that private property owners will not want to have concealed carry weapons on their premises. But should they decide they do, they would actually affirmatively put a sign in their window, a bar, a restaurant, a gathering place, concealed carry weapons, welcome here. Otherwise, the presumption will be in the state of New York that they are not. We're going to protect the rights of private property owners, allow them to not have to be subjected to someone walking into their workplace or a bar, restaurant with a concealed weapon, and therefore we're going to take that very strong step, but we believe that it is sustainable, and that's what the law is going to be once we get this through tomorrow. So we're standing up for the rights of business owners, standing up for their right to be able to protect their premises and their patrons and their fellow workers and their employees, and that's what we're going to do. We're also strengthening the list of disqualifying criteria. So you can't get a permit if you have a history of dangerous behavior. We're also going to be updating our safe storage laws. So we're going to have more people out there who legally would be able to carry weapons. Well, guess what? 25% of gun crimes are committed with stolen guns. Where can they steal them out of? They can steal them out of your vehicle. So we're adding a vehicle requirement to our safe storage laws. So you have to have them locked up when you're traveling. And right now, if you have children in your home under the age of 16, you have to have safe storage. And I would say, given the concern we have with the increase in suicides with teenagers, we're going to raise that number to 18. So guns in a household with 18-year-olds or younger will have to now be locked up. We're also going to improve our information sharing for state police background checks and bolster training. So there's in-person fire range training. We're working out the details. Over 15 hours will be required of in-person training to be able to receive a concealed carry permit. And this is going to be significant. We're going to require a background check for all purchases of ammunition for guns that need a permit. You'll have to show that permit at the time of purchase. And also we'll be standing up the database, and I'll be talking about that more tomorrow, the ammunition database that is long overdue. And again, as I mentioned, we'll be talking about that. I have a plan to explain to you how that even happened. But we don't want to lose the protections of our concealed carry law, so we're doing everything we can to continue protecting New Yorkers. This has been a fight of my life for a long time. I was a young staffer for Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan when we wanted to ban what they called at the time cop killer bullets, armor-piercing bullets. And there was such resistance to do something that seemed like such common sense to all of us, that you would not want a bullet that could take the life of a law enforcement officer whose sworn duty is to keep others alive. So I have been on these battles for a long time. I see this as an extension of that work. There's more to do. This is a nationwide crisis. Too many lives are being lost here in New York, but I will not rest as the governor of this state until we've done everything in our power to end this gun epidemic once and for all here in the state of New York, because we're not going backwards, we're going forward. And I want to say, if 6 Supreme Court justices want to take us backwards, we have a legislature full of duly elected representatives who actually speak for the people of this state and want to protect a law that's been on the books for over 100 years. And so we all collectively, the legislature, myself, and all others, our law enforcement individuals I just spoke to a few minutes ago, they all want us to make sure we have smart, sensible gun safety legislation. So I appreciate the desire and the interest of our legislature to get this done. Again, coming in, they're starting to arrive now, they're meeting, and I hope to have a pen in my hand tomorrow, or the very early hours of Friday morning, or I'll stay as long as it takes. I'm not going anywhere. So we'll get it done. And I want the people of New York to know that we take this deadly seriously. The Supreme Court decision was a setback for us, but I would call it a temporary setback, because we are going to marshal the resources, the intellect. We've been talking to leaders in this industry and academics and people in think tanks to find out what we can do legally, constitutionally, to make sure that we do not surrender my right as governor or our rights as New Yorkers to protect ourselves from gun violence. And I do want to give a shout out to Marcos Soler, the Deputy Secretary of Public Safety, who's been on speed dial with me nonstop over this. I appreciate his involvement with our gun interdiction task force that I just pulled him out of. There you are, so Marcos. But we've been having constant conversations about finding the right answer to make sure that this Supreme Court decision does not have the effect of making New Yorkers less safe than they are right now. Any questions?
Governor, is it fair to say that there is an agreement on all of these provisions that you just listed with the state legislature? And as a follow-up to that, is there an expectation that these will be able to survive whatever sort of legal challenge could be coming to them?
No, we have been consulting with legal experts. There are experts in the city of New York. We have people, I think it's Duke University, SMU. There are think tanks and academic think tanks around the country. We've been engaging them to make sure that we know we have to make sure this is constitutional. We get that. We're not looking to go back into court. But we also know that we have more powers than people may realize, that we're going to institute those to make sure New Yorkers are safe. And the legislature has been in conversation with us. I gave you top line areas. The details are what we're working out with the legislature now, but I would say conceptually, we're all on board with these. Karen?
So under the terms of the bill that you're talking about, is there anywhere that you could go in public and carry a concealed weapon? It sounds like you're shutting off all of the public places.
I can't shut up all places.
So what would be left?
Probably some streets. We know, literally the decision said you cannot say the entire island of Manhattan is off limits. We understand that. That's why I'm working hard with my team to have something that is common sense, that is legally sustainable, because of course there's challenges. We get sued every day of the week. But I want to make sure that we've done everything we can to protect the citizens of the state. So I will go right up to the line. I will not cross the line, but I know that we can do whatever we can to protect New Yorkers, and it means a list of places where they need to know when they go there to gather work, places of worship, places children are, polling places, government buildings, and larger gathering spaces, maybe more than 100 people working out the details, that they don't have to worry about someone being right there next to them, having a weapon, whereas before they would not have had the right to be there. And so we anticipate there'll be a larger number of people who will exercise this now conferred right by the Supreme Court of the United States, and we have to be anticipatory. We have to be ready to be able to deal with the increase in guns on our streets and what that looks like and how we can regulate as New Yorkers. Jimmy?
You know, New York has not had an extensive sensitive place restriction because the issuance of concealed carry permits has been so restrictive. I'm wondering what would happen under your new regime. There are many members of law enforcement who carry concealed when they're off duty. There are people who are rigorous and well-trained who carry off duty, and they do so in these public places with the thought that if something were to go awry, they are prepared, they are trained, they are armed. So is there any concern that banning these people from those public spaces to be armed might have an impact on public safety? Or are you taking provisions to sort of carve out, say, an off-duty officer?
That's a good question. That's what we're looking at. We look at there's about 22,000 concealed carry permits in New York City, for example. I believe that about 17,000 are held by former law enforcement. Is that right, Marcos? I just carry all these numbers in my head all the time. So we are talking, those are the conversations we're having right now. Those are the conversations. As I said, these are top-line areas. We're going to have sensitive areas defined. And, you know, are there carve-outs or not carve-outs for people with pre-existing concealed carry permits? That is the question. So no, we're going to have, this is, I wanted to let you, I keep getting asked everywhere I go for the last week, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I've laid out the top-line areas. I wanted to be clear. I wanted to be, you know, transparent with what we're doing here. Let the press know, let the public know. But these are the details that are being worked out with the legislature through the late hours. But that's a category of people we're talking about, for sure.
Well, another follow-up. You mentioned people, an extensive background check. Will that include a look at mental health records and the signing of a HIPAA waiver to get them?
Right now, that is how they are conducted in the city of New York, for example. So what we would do is create a baseline of qualifying factors and factors to be considered, you know, criminal behaviors and past, you know, certain cases that have not been covered before, misdemeanors, certain misdemeanors. We're looking at a broad category, but what I will not do is limit the ability of a locality that wants to take a more restrictive approach or have more criteria to consider than we have as a baseline. I have to represent the whole state of New York, but I will not tie the hands of New York City, and we'll spell that out in our legislation of the other areas that they can go to should they choose. So you're hitting on the heart of our negotiations right now, Jimmy, but all will be known by this time tomorrow or Friday for sure. Yes.
Do you have numbers on how
See
many
that.
Ma'am,
people
she
would-
pointed to me, please, seriously. Can you also please comment on the Attorney General's lawsuit for those manufacturers of unfinished gun parts that contribute to the ongoing violence as well?
My comment is yes, we're working together, 100% support for that. When you think about it, we have gun laws in place in New York because there's something called states' rights, or at least there were up until last weekend. We have states' rights, and the state of New York is more protected, feels more protected, and the statistics show that we are more protected when you look at the rate of gun deaths in our states versus others. So we are going to continue working together and saying that you should not be able to manufacture component parts of a weapon that is not legal here, ship it to somebody's house, and have them put it together and be out there in the street using it. That doesn't even pass the common sense test. So we are going against them. I signed a law, I believe it was October 28th last fall, to ban ghost guns. Shocking that they weren't already banned, but it is fairly new. And our number of, you know, interdiction of those guns is high, but I support our Attorney General to use the tools of her office on our behalf to make sure that we stop the flow of those guns designed to evade our laws. That's all I can call it. They're designed to evade our laws, and those manufacturers need to be held accountable.
Governor, do you have the numbers to show that it's the concealed carry permit holders that are committing crimes? Because the lawful gun owner will say that you're attacking the wrong person. It's really people that are getting these guns illegally that are causing the violence, not the people going and getting the permit legally, and that's the basis for the whole Supreme Court argument. Do you have the numbers?
I don't need to have numbers. I don't have to have a data point to say that this is gonna all I know is I have a responsibility to the people of this state to have sensible gun safety laws. And this one was not devised by the Hochul administration. It comes out of an administration from 1908 in our state. So this is not a new law. This is how we did things for over 100 years. So that is what the Supreme Court has attacked. Our right to be able to have gun laws, not new, but over 100 years old. And so we are going to continue making sure that we toughen those laws. And I have an obligation, regardless of a number or two, I don't need a data point to make the case that I have a responsibility to protect the people of this state. And also, I will say that when we enact our laws and we have more people, just we got the volume of more people who will be on the streets with guns who were not allowed before. It is one thing to have a gun for your family's protection in your home. That is the law of the state of New York. I know a lot about that. One of my jobs as a county clerk was to issue pistol permits. I know exactly what's involved. I know the background checks, the mental health checks, the state police background check, the checks with 3 of your neighbors. I know all this. And to say that that's fine for in your home, but all of a sudden now you're out in the streets, now you're driving around, now you're going to bars, now you're going to the workplace, that is a whole different ballgame. And that was what I would consider more like the old Wild West. Well, this is not the Wild West. This is New York State.
To clarify, places that serve alcohol would be sensitive?
Pardon me?
To clarify, would places that serve alcohol be sensitive?
I don't need to define a place as being sensitive for alcohol. What I'm saying is that there'll be a default position for private property owners, which includes businesses like restaurants, bars, workplaces. The presumption will be that they don't want concealed carry unless they put out a sign that says concealed carry weapons, welcome here.
Just to follow up, in the Buffalo case, the man that went into the grocery store obviously didn't have a concealed carry, and somebody who's going to go do a mass shooting or something like that may not go get a concealed carry.
I never said there's any correlation between our solution here and the Buffalo case. In fact, I signed a package of 10 laws following Buffalo that dealt with the issues that were raised there. That in fact, you had an 18-year-old be able to go off and buy an AR-15 after being radicalized on social media, believing the premises behind race replacement theory and white supremacy and racism, and was able to go illegally over to Pennsylvania, buy a 30-bullet high-capacity magazine, attach it to the AR-15, and kill somebody. I did not say we're solving for that with this. We already addressed that. This is dealing with the fact that the Supreme Court, less than 1 week ago, turned our world upside down, and now says that there's going to be a much higher number of people walking our streets, going on the subway, sitting next to someone on a bus, unless we take the action to protect our citizens.
But what if they can't practice self-defense because of the restrictions?
My point, let me give you, you like statistics, you like numbers? I said at the outset, 5 people per 100,000 have died from gun violence in the state of New York. The states that have more liberal laws, carry guns everywhere you want on the theory of self-protection, their average is about 28.6%. More people are dying in those states where some might argue, something I don't agree with, but the right to carry a gun is to protect you from the bad guys. That's not working. We have data that shows that is not working. Last question.
Governor, there's been talk in recent months that President Biden might not seek another term. Now that you've solidified your place as the top Democrat in one of the top Democratic states, would you commit to serving a full 4-year term if elected in November?
I am absolutely supporting Joe Biden when he runs for re-election. Those are my conversations with him. I support him for re-election.
But if he doesn't, are you committing to the voters of New York that you'll serve a full 4-year term?
I am staying here as long as the voters of New York will have me.
Governor, on the equality of...
And that's it, yes, if you want to say, yes. I'm not even elected yet, Bill. I just got the nomination, so.
But before the general election, it's often asked the governors of New York, will you commit to
You
serving?
can ask me, yes, I love this job. I'm staying here, but I'm supporting Joe Biden 100%. He is working so hard and does not get the credit for what he is doing under difficult circumstances, and I'm going to continue talking about his policies and the policies of other Democrats, that we are not going back to the extremism that we saw manifest itself when you have a president who's able to select Supreme Court justices. That's what I'm reeling with right now. And we haven't even talked about abortion. So that's another day, because there's a lot to show the contrast. But I'm not here to talk about politics, but I'm honored to be the Democratic nominee for my first term as governor, and I'll be very happy to be successful in that, voters willing. Last question.
A couple more, so Viv and then Josh, and we're good.
Okay, I just had 2 questions and I'll be good. Obviously, you won the primary yesterday. Talk about your thoughts on the race and your thoughts on taking on Zeldin in November.
No, as I just said, I'm very focused on my job right now. Very humbled by the outpouring of support, as Bill would point out, almost record-setting number of people turning out in a primary, in a midterm primary. So I'm honored and humbled by that. And I know what the people want, because I've been out there. I talk to people when I go to the street fairs and the farmers markets and the subways, and there's a lot of fear out there. And I've never seen this before. This is my 13th election. I've never seen the anxiety when people come up to me in subway stops and literally start crying in my arms because they're so fearful that their rights are going to continue to be stripped away by the radicals who've now infiltrated the Supreme Court of the United States. So I'll be focused on those issues at the right time. I will call them out. But right now, I've got a very busy job making sure that we have policies to protect people. That's what we're focused on now. But also helping people with the high cost of living, finding more ways to lift that burden from them. There's a lot of pain and anxiety out there. And my job is to focus on that, how we can help people get through these very challenging times. But I'm honored to be the nominee, truly.
And I just have one more question and I'll be done. Yesterday, we spoke to a group of Black Democratic women lawmakers, and they said they reached out to you, and they have some issues, some Black issues and Latino issues, and they've reached out to your office and haven't got a response. What are your thoughts on that?
This is the first I've heard of it, but my door is open. If they're in Albany, I'll have coffee with them Saturday morning. I always meet everybody. Everybody knows that. So, yes, Josh.
I'll give you an opportunity to talk about abortion.
Now you're getting really riled up. As if I'm not upset about the Supreme Court on this one, but thank you, okay?
The Equality Amendment, my understanding, Attorney General James assured lawmakers that the potential Equality Amendment would not have any legal issues with religious rights. Is that your understanding, your administration's understanding of it right now? And given the current proposed language, do you support that and would like to see lawmakers vote on it tomorrow?
I just want to get this done. Now, the special session was called back for the exclusive purpose of dealing with the Supreme Court decision on concealed carry. However, as a strong supporter of an equality amendment, I am open to, widening that scope a little bit to deal with this. I know it's been worked on for years, even in this last session. I mean, they just literally wrapped up their session a few weeks ago, so they had the opportunity then. But if they still hadn't reached the necessary compromise between the Assembly and the Senate, and they are not there now, they should talk to me about it, and let's see what we can do. I do support this. We have Roe v. Wade codified in state law. I was very proud to preside before the Senate when that was passed, and it was a significant accomplishment, even though at the time no one really thought it'd be needed. It is needed, and especially as there's some talk of, again, we'll never hopefully get there, but if there is a change in leadership in Washington, there could be a nationwide abortion ban. I'll do whatever. I will protect New York women. I'll invite women from other states to come here and receive the services that they're being denied in other states. But heaven help us if that happens.
What do you think of that being kind of stuck in neutral over these concerns surrounding the religious language that's been talked about?
I want them to work it out. I encourage them to work it out. I've said that all along. They have an opportunity to, the Assembly, the Senate, put together a plan. They bring it. It gets passed. And actually, a governor doesn't sign a constitutional amendment.
All right, thanks everyone, we gotta go.
All right, thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.